Have you ever wondered how one courageous mother's stand against workplace discrimination could ignite a movement and change everything? Get ready to dive into the gripping true story of Olivia, a determined professional who refused to be silenced and instead sparked hope for every working parent across America. Olivia took a deep breath as she stood before the gleaming glass doors of Summit Marketing. The company's iconic emblem shone in the morning sun, yet today, after 6 months of maternity leave, everything felt different. As she stepped back into her role as a senior account strategist, her heart pounded with a mix of excitement and anxiety. The reception area buzzed with the familiar energy of a Monday morning, and Olivia's stiletto heels clicked on the polished floor as she made her way to the elevator. In the mirror, she saw a crisp tailored suit and neatly styled hair, but beneath that professional exterior lay vulnerability, a reminder of her new reality as a working mother, symbolized by the constant presence of her breast pump. On the 5th floor, Olivia was greeted by a chorus of "Welcome back" from her colleagues. She exchanged quick hellos as she settled at her desk, which looked just as she had left it. Yet, almost immediately, she began noticing subtle changes in the behavior of those around her. Conversations softened in volume as she passed, and some colleagues even averted their eyes. Brushing off her own insecurities, she focused instead on her overflowing inbox, packed with project updates and fresh initiatives. When a calendar invite for a team meeting popped up, Olivia felt a familiar churn in her stomach. She was expected to contribute seamlessly, as if she had never been away. The weight of having to prove herself all over again pressed heavily on her. While preparing for the meeting, Olivia's thoughts drifted to her young son, Ethan. She wondered if he was settling in well at daycare. The guilt of leaving him behind clashed with her ambition to excel at work, but she set those thoughts aside. Determinedly, she stepped into the conference room, only to find herself struggling to keep pace with rapid-fire updates and inside jokes that had developed in her absence. When it was finally her turn to speak, every pair of eyes was on her. Though she stumbled at first, Olivia soon regained her composure, presenting her ideas with a confidence that belied her inner turmoil. Throughout the day, Olivia juggled client calls, project updates, and the ever-present need to express milk discreetly. She kept glancing at the clock, calculating the perfect moment to pump without drawing too much attention. Despite these challenges, she ended her first day back feeling cautiously optimistic. She had contributed meaningfully, even scheduling key client meetings for the upcoming week. As she packed up her belongings, a small smile of satisfaction spread across her face. She could be both a dedicated professional and a loving mother. However, just 2 weeks into her return, an unexpected encounter would shatter her newfound optimism. One afternoon, as Olivia raced down a hallway, her eyes darting around in search of a quiet spot, she felt the familiar pressure in her chest signaling that it was time to express milk. Her carefully arranged schedule had been disrupted by a last-minute client call, and in a bid to salvage her plans, she ducked into an empty conference room. Relieved to have found a moment of privacy, she quickly set up her pump and tried to relax, closing her eyes and thinking of little Ethan, with his tiny hands and bright smile, to soothe her tension. But just as she began to regain her composure, the door handle jiggled. In an instant, the door swung open, and Olivia's heart leaped into her throat. Standing in the doorway was Brandon, her manager. His expression shifted rapidly from surprise to discomfort, and then to something even harder to decipher. "Oh, Olivia," he stammered, his eyes flickering between her face and the pump. I didn't realize you were in here." Olivia's cheeks flushed as she scrambled to cover herself, mumbling an apology. "I'm sorry, Brandon. I thought I had locked the door. I'll be done in just a few minutes." But Brandon's discomfort hardened into irritation. "Look, Olivia, I think you should do this at home. It's really not appropriate for the office. Why don't you just have the daycare give Ethan formula? My kids had it, and they're just fine." His words struck Olivia like a physical blow. For a moment, She opened her mouth to respond, but Brandon had already backed out of the room, leaving her in stunned silence. With trembling hands, she packed up her pump, trying to make sense of what had just happened. She knew that federal law protected her right to express milk at work, and Summit Marketing had even provided a dedicated lactation room. Using an empty conference room when necessary was perfectly reasonable. Yet Brandon's dismissive words, "not really appropriate for the office," echoed in her mind, raising a painful question: if he saw this as unprofessional, what else might her status as a new mother be affecting in the company? Taking a deep breath, Olivia returned to her desk, forcing herself to believe that it was just an awkward, isolated incident, a misunderstanding on Brandon's part, no doubt. Surely, once he had time to reflect, he would realize his reaction was out of line. Determined to push the incident aside, she focused on her work, managing projects and impressing clients. But beneath the surface, a dark undercurrent of bias had begun to seep into the office environment. Over the following days, Olivia noticed the air in the office shifting. Whispers trailed in her wake, conversations hushed whenever she walked by, and even in meetings, her ideas were met with awkward silence before someone quickly changed the subject. The sting of exclusion was palpable, and Olivia began to question her place within a team she once led with confidence. In the hallways, fragments of hushed conversations reached her ears, snatches of remarks like, "probably distracted by mom duties," and "she's up for this." These overheard whispers chipped away at her professional identity, replacing her reputation as a dedicated strategist with that of the inconvenient new mother. The situation came to a head during a crucial client presentation. As Olivia prepared her materials in a conference room, she overheard two colleagues whispering just outside. "Do you think she's up for this one?" one asked. "Brandon should have given this account to someone who can really focus," the other replied. Their words struck Olivia like a physical blow, momentarily stealing her breath. Yet, she gathered her strength and delivered her presentation flawlessly. The client was impressed, praising her innovative approach and attention to detail. Still, as she packed up her materials afterwards, a nagging feeling persisted. Her success seemed to be viewed as an anomaly rather than the norm. Back at her desk, Olivia tried to focus, pushing the hushed whispers and sidelong glances into the recesses of her mind. She reminded herself of her accomplishments, her expertise, and her unequivocal right to be there. But questions remained. What exactly were her colleagues saying when she wasn't around? How deep did this undercurrent of doubt run? As she left the office that evening, she caught sight of a small group of co-workers huddled together. Their conversation halted abruptly when they noticed her, and the silence that followed spoke volumes, hinting at secret discussions held behind closed doors. Determined not to let their behavior affect her, Olivia squared her shoulders and walked on. Yet, as she stepped into her next presentation, she noticed Brandon's eyes narrow, his gaze fixed on her every move. Something had changed in her once supportive manager, and the answer would soon reveal a startling truth about workplace bias. In the conference room, the atmosphere grew tense as Olivia set up her materials. Brandon's demeanor was cold and almost hostile. As she began outlining her innovative strategy for their newest client, his voice cut through the silence with a sharp, dismissive tone. "I'm not sure this approach is what we're looking for, Olivia," he said. "It seems a bit unfocused. Perhaps you should take some time to refine your ideas." The unexpected harsh critique stung deeply. Olivia had spent weeks perfecting her presentation while balancing her responsibilities as both a professional and a mother. The implication that her work was subpar was a bitter blow. As days turned into weeks, Brandon's behavior grew increasingly difficult to ignore. In team meetings, he would interrupt Olivia mid-sentence, redirecting the conversation. When she submitted reports, he returned them covered in red ink, scrutinizing even the most minor details. One afternoon, while Olivia was deep in her work, she overheard Brandon speaking to a client on the phone. "Don't worry, I'll handle that account personally," he said, his tone casual yet ominous. We want to ensure it gets the attention it deserves. A sinking feeling washed over Olivia as she realized he was referring to one of her long-standing clients, a client she had nurtured over the years. Research has shown that implicit bias against working mothers is a pervasive issue in many workplaces, and Olivia's experience seemed to align with these troubling statistics. The constant barrage of criticism and exclusion made her second-guess every decision and idea. In an effort to prove her worth, she began arriving at the office earlier and staying later, desperately trying to counter every subtle slight. One evening, as she was packing up to leave, Brandon approached her desk once again. "I noticed you're working on the Burwood account," he said in a deceptively casual tone. "I think it might be best if we reassign that to someone who can give it their full attention." The Burwood account was one of the agency's most prestigious clients, a client Olivia had personally brought in and managed for years. Fighting to keep her voice steady, she replied, "I can handle it, Brandon. I've been managing this account successfully for years." His expression hardened as he replied, "Things change, Olivia. We need to ensure our clients get our best work." With those ominous words, Brandon walked away, leaving Olivia stunned. The implication was clear: in his eyes, her performance, and perhaps even her very capability, had been compromised by her role as a mother. The break room, once a place of camaraderie, had become a silent battlefield. As Olivia entered, her colleagues averted their eyes, and the warm, lively gatherings of just a few months earlier were replaced by tight-lipped smiles and hurried nods. She ate her lunch in solitude, each bite tasting as bland as the cardboard container it came in. Studies have shown that social connections at work play a crucial role in employee satisfaction and productivity, yet Olivia felt the absence of those connections acutely. The isolation chipped away at her sense of belonging and professional identity. She found herself obsessively replaying each interaction in her mind, searching for hidden meanings in every brief exchange. Determined to break through the wall of silence, Olivia mustered her courage and approached Natalie, a colleague she had once considered a close work friend. "Hey, Natalie," she said, forcing a smile. "I was wondering if you'd like to grab coffee sometime this week. It feels like we haven't caught up in ages." But Natalie's response was distant and guarded. "Oh, thanks, Olivia, but I'm pretty swamped this week." "Maybe another time," she said, before hurrying away. The sting of rejection burned in Olivia's chest as she returned to her isolated table, the weight of her situation crashing down upon her. The workplace that had once been a source of pride and fulfillment now felt like a hostile environment, a constant battle against invisibility and irrelevance. Even as the days dragged on, the tension in the office escalated. Olivia's phone buzzed with a reminder: it was nearly time to pump again. As she reached for her phone to reschedule a client call, she overheard two male colleagues whispering nearby. "Did you see the stain on Brandon's shirt earlier?" one snickered. "Looks like he got too close to the new mom during the meeting." The other joined in, his tone dripping with disdain, "Yeah, those leaky types are a real liability in the office." Their crude jokes cut through Olivia like a knife, leaving her frozen with shame and anger. The constant struggle to maintain her professionalism while meeting her body's natural needs felt overwhelmingly unfair. Memories of her pre-motherhood self, a fearless professional who confidently presented bold ideas and mentored junior colleagues, flooded her mind. Where had that fearless version of herself gone? The sound of approaching footsteps snapped her back to the present. Looking up, Olivia saw Natalie passing by once again. Their eyes met briefly before Natalie quickly looked away, a flicker of guilt crossing her face. In that moment, with trembling hands, Olivia made a decision. She opened her email and began composing a detailed message to Human Resources, documenting every incident with cold, factual precision, each breach of her legal rights as a nursing mother, every snide comment overheard, every instance where she was made to feel uncomfortable for simply caring for her child. Her finger hovered over the send button as doubt crept in. Would this email make things worse? But thinking of Ethan, she steeled herself and pressed send. A mix of relief and anxiety washed over her as the email disappeared into the digital ether. This email, intended as her lifeline, would soon become the catalyst for a meeting that would force her to confront the very people who had plotted against her. Could a plea for support transform into an ambush that would derail her career? That fateful day, Olivia found herself sitting in a stark HR office, facing Marianne, the HR director, and Brandon, whose earlier actions now loomed over her like a specter. The atmosphere was thick with tension as Marianne, in a businesslike tone, gestured for her to take a seat. "Olivia, we've called you here today to discuss some concerns about your recent performance," Marianne said, sliding a folder across the desk. "There have been reports of several instances of unprofessional conduct." Brandon leaned forward, his tone dripping with disdain as he added, "We're also aware of an incident involving the use of a conference room for personal matters." His reference was unmistakable, and Olivia's cheeks burned with humiliation. "I've been meeting all my deadlines," she protested. "The conference room incident was a necessary break for me to express milk for my baby. It's my legal right to have accommodations." Marianne's expression remained impassive as she replied, "We're not questioning your rights, Olivia, but we are concerned about the impact on team productivity and morale. Several colleagues have expressed discomfort with your situation." As the meeting continued, Olivia found herself on the defensive, struggling to counter each accusation with cold, hard facts about her performance and legal rights. But every attempt was met with skepticism and dismissive responses. When the meeting concluded, Marianne delivered a final, chilling remark: "We will be placing a note about this discussion in your file. We expect to see immediate improvement in your performance and professionalism, or we may need to consider more serious actions." With those words ringing in her ears, Olivia was left to confront a crucial decision: should she risk everything by seeking legal help, or silently endure the injustice? Sitting alone in her car in the nearly empty parking lot, Olivia's mind raced as she gripped the steering wheel. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows on the asphalt as she hesitated before dialing a number. In her contacts sat the number for a labor law attorney, a number she had saved in a moment of desperation but never had the courage to call. What if this call made everything worse? What if they fired her for seeking legal help? With a deep breath, and thinking of Ethan and the future she desperately wanted to build for him, she pressed the call button. After a few rings, a calm, measured voice answered from the law offices of Cole Associates. "How may I direct your call?" the receptionist asked. Olivia's voice trembled as she explained her situation, detailing every degrading moment at work. The receptionist listened patiently before transferring her to an attorney named Rachel Cole. As Olivia recounted the details of her treatment at work, Rachel's voice grew increasingly concerned. "Olivia," she said firmly yet compassionately, "what your company is doing is illegal. Your rights are protected by federal law." A wave of relief mingled with anger washed over Olivia. "Why hadn't HR informed me of these rights?" she asked softly. Rachel quickly reassured her, "It's not uncommon for employers to use performance complaints as a smoke screen for discrimination. The timing of these issues is highly suspicious." Hope surged within Olivia. Maybe she wasn't overreacting, maybe she wasn't a bad employee at all, just a mother fighting to do what was right for both her child and her career. Under Rachel's guidance, Olivia embarked on a meticulous journey through her work history. She sifted through countless emails, performance reviews, and meeting notes, assembling a timeline that starkly contrasted her glowing pre-maternity assessments with post-maternity evaluations that were rife with vague criticisms such as distracted and inconsistent. Each piece of evidence painted a picture of a systematic effort to diminish her accomplishments and undermine her professional worth. In addition, she reached out to a few trusted colleagues, asking if they would provide statements about their observations. Some readily expressed their discomfort with the changes they had witnessed, others hesitated, fearful of the repercussions. One colleague, Tom, replied with a regretful note, "I want to help, Olivia, but I can't risk my job. The isolation Olivia felt was palpable, yet she knew the stakes were too high, not just for her own future, but for every working parent who had ever been made to feel inferior for nurturing their child. Every incident was meticulously logged. Olivia recorded every interruption during her pump sessions, every snide remark, every instance of exclusion from important meetings. Then, with trembling hands, she discovered a damning email thread, a conversation between Brandon and Marianne dated shortly after her return from maternity leave. The subject line read, Olivia's situation. Brandon's email stated, "We need to discuss how to handle Olivia's problem. Her constant breaks are disrupting the team, and I'm concerned about her commitment level. Is there a way we can address this without exposing ourselves to legal issues?" Marianne's reply was equally damning, "I understand your concerns, Brandon. We need to be cautious in our approach. Let's start documenting any performance issues, no matter how small, so we can build a case for reduced productivity that isn't directly tied to her status as a new mother." With a mix of anger and vindication, Olivia quickly forwarded the email thread to her personal account and to Rachel, her attorney. Soon after, Olivia was summoned to a high-stakes meeting that would determine not just her future but also set a precedent for every working parent in the company. In a conference room that reeked of tension, she sat across from Brandon, Marianne, and a sharply dressed company lawyer. Brandon cleared his throat and began in a tone that tried to mask his concern. "Olivia, we've called this meeting to discuss your recent performance issues. We hope to come to an amicable resolution." The company lawyer leaned forward. "We understand you've been in contact with an attorney. I must remind you that legal action could be detrimental to your future career prospects." Olivia opened her folder, her hands steadying as she began to lay out her evidence. First, the dramatic shift in her performance reviews, next, the numerous interruptions and derogatory comments, and finally, the documented email exchange that revealed a deliberate attempt to undermine her. Brandon and Marianne's expressions faltered as they reviewed the evidence. When the lawyer attempted to interject, Olivia cut him off, stating firmly, "I'm not here to threaten legal action. I'm here to assert my rights and to ensure that no other mother in this company faces the discrimination I have endured." Despite the initial attempts to intimidate her, her detailed log of work hours, completed projects, and consistently positive client feedback bolstered her case. As the meeting drew to a close, neither side was willing to yield completely. The company lawyer suggested that they review Olivia's documentation further, but Brandon and Marianne now appeared diminished, their earlier confidence shattered by the weight of the evidence against them. With a final, ominous warning that a note of this discussion would be placed in her file and that any further decline in performance could lead to more severe actions, Olivia left the room feeling both exhausted and resolute. That evening, as she sat at her kitchen table surrounded by legal documents and detailed notes, Olivia experienced a moment of epiphany. The company's attempts to silence her only highlighted the importance of her fight, not only for herself but for every working parent battling similar discrimination. With renewed determination, she began drafting a public account of her experience. She knew that by sharing her story, she could shine a light on the hidden biases that permeated corporate culture and inspire others to stand up for their rights. Before long, word of Olivia's stand began to spread beyond the walls of Summit Marketing. A local news reporter, having caught wind of her struggle, reached out, and soon Olivia found herself in a small TV studio. Under harsh studio lights and in front of cameras, she recounted her ordeal, the subtle shifts in attitude, the exclusion from meetings, and the constant struggle to find time and space to pump. With every word, her initial nervousness melted away, replaced by a confident determination to advocate for working parents everywhere. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Her story gained national attention, leading to appearances on morning shows, interviews with major newspapers, and countless messages of support from mothers across the country. The media attention forced Summit Marketing to re-examine its policies. In a desperate attempt to control the narrative, the company issued an official statement that painted Olivia as a disgruntled employee. The statement twisted her fight for her legal rights into a tale of personal vendetta and unreasonable demands, conveniently omitting her sterling track record before maternity leave and the legal protections afforded to nursing mothers. The statement lauded the company's long-standing commitment to diversity and inclusion, yet those words rang hollow in light of Olivia's lived experience. As the controversy grew, so too did the support from her colleagues, some of whom had previously been silent. Natalie, now regretful for her earlier distance, reached out to Olivia with a simple message: "I heard about what happened. I want you to know you're not alone. Meet me for coffee after work." Other colleagues began sharing their own stories of discrimination and exclusion. Mark from IT sent screenshots of internal communications that hinted at a broader pattern of bias, while Emma, a junior associate in marketing, tearfully recounted how she had been passed over for promotion shortly after announcing her pregnancy. Even Tom, who had once hesitated to help, finally came forward with a written statement confirming the hostile work environment Olivia had endured. Yet, despite the growing chorus of support, the company's retaliation was swift. A new company-wide email arrived, meticulously crafted to discredit Olivia's claims. The message detailed alleged performance issues and frequent absences, completely ignoring her long-standing achievements and the legal accommodations she was entitled to. As Olivia read the email, anger welled up inside her. The message not only isolated her further but also threatened to undermine the solidarity that had begun to form among her colleagues. In the midst of this turmoil, Olivia's phone buzzed with a reminder to pump. Reluctantly, she stepped away from her desk. As she gathered her pumping supplies, she overheard two male colleagues snickering nearby. "Did you see how Brandon reacted today?" one whispered. "He really doesn't want any more interruptions from the new mom." Their crude laughter stung, a painful reminder that the battle she was fighting extended far beyond personal inconvenience. It was about basic human dignity and the right to be a parent without being penalized at work. That night, as Olivia sat in her car in a dimly lit parking lot, her mind raced with conflicting emotions. The weight of isolation, the sting of repeated rejections, and the constant barrage of discriminatory comments left her questioning whether she could continue in such an environment. Yet, as she glanced at a framed photo of Ethan tucked securely in her purse, a symbol of her determination to build a better future for him, she realized that her fight was far from over. With trembling resolve, she began outlining her next steps, determined to hold Summit Marketing accountable for every slight and every legal violation. In the days that followed, Olivia's struggle evolved into something much larger than her own personal battle. The media spotlight forced the company into a defensive stance. As public scrutiny intensified, employees across the company began to speak out. A small group of advocates within Summit Marketing organized secret meetings to discuss how to improve internal policies and support working parents. Olivia became a beacon of hope for many, a symbol of resilience and a call to action against the entrenched biases that had long plagued corporate culture. Her story resonated far beyond the confines of her own office. Invitations to speak at conferences and corporate seminars poured in. Olivia began hosting workshops to educate employers about the legal rights of working parents and the tangible benefits of supportive family policies. Drawing on a mix of personal anecdotes and hard data, she showcased how companies with robust parental support policies not only retained top talent but also experienced higher productivity and overall employee satisfaction. Her workshops became a rallying cry for change, sparking conversations about flexibility, inclusion, and respect in workplaces nationwide. Amid this whirlwind, Olivia continued to face challenges on the front lines. One afternoon, while reviewing a crucial project proposal in her quiet home office, her phone buzzed with another urgent message, this time from Rachel, her attorney. "I've been contacted by a group of senators," the message read. "They're drafting new legislation to strengthen protections for working parents and want your input." The realization hit Olivia like a tidal wave. Her personal struggle had transcended the boardroom, it was now influencing national policy. The prospect of helping to craft a law that would ensure fair treatment for all working parents filled her with renewed hope and fierce determination. In the following weeks, Olivia's schedule became a frenetic blend of strategic meetings with lawmakers, interviews with major media outlets, and consultations with legal experts. She testified before a Senate committee, presenting compelling data on the economic and social benefits of supporting working parents. In her testimony, she recounted her own experiences with unrelenting workplace discrimination, and her story, combined with the powerful voices of countless other parents, began to sway public opinion. The push for reform was not without setbacks. Some legislators proposed watered-down versions of the bill, and corporate lobbyists launched fierce campaigns to discredit the initiative. Yet, through it all, Olivia's resolve never wavered. As the final vote on the Working Parents Protection Act approached, Olivia spent long nights poring over reports and letters from supporters. Every statistic, every personal story of hardship, reinforced her belief that change was not only possible but necessary. When the day of the vote finally arrived, Olivia sat in the gallery of the Senate chamber, her heart pounding with anticipation. With each "I vote yes" that echoed through the chamber, hope surged within her, while every dissenting vote felt like a personal setback. In the end, the act passed by a narrow margin, a hard-fought victory that promised to reshape workplaces across the nation. Fast forward 15 years, and the landscape had transformed dramatically. Flexible schedules and on-site childcare had become standard in many industries. At Nova Communications, a company that had become a model for progressive policies, Olivia now held a senior leadership role. The company had invested in a state-of-the-art childcare center and allowed employees to set flexible work hours, ensuring that family commitments were respected without compromising professional growth. Yet, even as overt discrimination waned, subtle biases persisted. Colleagues occasionally made offhand comments that hinted at lingering prejudices, and some working mothers still felt marginalized despite the policy changes. Olivia often reflected on how much had changed since her tumultuous early days as a new mother in the workforce. One afternoon, as she watched Ethan, now a confident young man, address his classmates during a career day event, she marveled at the progress made. Teenagers were now asking about work-life balance, parental leave policies, and career growth opportunities that accommodated family life. It was clear that a new generation had grown up in an era where the struggles of working parents were no longer taboo, but openly discussed and addressed. Yet, despite these strides, a recent study revealed that nearly 47% of working mothers still face discrimination in the workplace. The statistic hit Olivia like a punch to the gut. How could the gap still remain, she wondered. Determined to close this gap once and for all, Olivia continued her advocacy, pushing for even stronger legislation and corporate accountability. She organized strategy sessions with fellow advocates, exploring innovative approaches such as partnering with tech companies to develop AI systems capable of identifying and mitigating bias in hiring and promotion decisions. They also campaigned for legislation requiring regular audits of company policies on parental support, ensuring that these policies were not just written on paper but implemented in everyday practice. In one of these strategy sessions, Olivia and her longtime friend Rebecca, a former colleague who had also faced similar discrimination, discussed the evolving challenges of the modern workplace. "We've made significant progress," Rebecca said, "but algorithmic bias and the always-on culture of remote work present new hurdles that we must address." Olivia nodded, jotting down ideas in a worn notebook. Together, they envisioned a future where every working parent could thrive, free from the constraints of outdated corporate biases. As the sun set on yet another long day of advocacy and strategy meetings, Olivia sat at her kitchen table, reflecting on the journey that had brought her from a struggling new mother to a trailblazing champion for workplace equality. Her eyes rested on a faded photograph of Ethan, a poignant reminder of why she had fought so hard and why she would never relent. The scars of her past would always be with her, but they had also paved the way for a better future, not just for her, but for every parent striving for fairness and respect in the workplace. In the final chapters of her story, Olivia stepped into a new role as a public advocate. Standing at the podium in a packed auditorium filled with working parents, HR professionals, and company executives, she delivered a stirring speech. Her voice, once trembling with uncertainty, now rang out strong and clear as she recounted the hardships, the triumphs, and the enduring power of resilience. Each word was a call to action, a reminder that one voice could spark lasting change and that collective action could transform even the most entrenched systems of bias. Her story, a testament to the indomitable spirit of working parents, soon ignited a nationwide movement. Companies began to overhaul their policies, and legislation was strengthened to protect the rights of those who balanced careers and family life. Olivia's journey had not been easy, and the road ahead was still fraught with challenges, but with each small victory, the ripple effect of her determination grew larger, touching lives far beyond her own. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey, a journey of struggle, resilience, and ultimately, transformation. If Olivia's story has inspired you or sparked a thought about the importance of supporting working parents, please hit that subscribe button, leave a comment below with your thoughts, and share this video so that together, we can keep the conversation going. Your voice matters, and every story shared brings us one step closer to a more inclusive, supportive future for all.